formal webinar. So if you have questions along the way, probably as I get into the software, please ask away. So the OnBase App Builder, we initially released this in last release of 23.1. So in 2023 was the first release of the OnBase App Builder. And in here, moving along here. So think of this as a new way of thinking about creating, building, and designing and shaping OnBase interfaces, obviously with solutions and different navigations to really better the user experience. So traditionally, we're really taking all of the existing configured OnBase systems and incorporating them into the solution that's through a simple point-and-click configuration application building interface to deliver the solutions more as a role-based web application. So OnBase apps will be delivered through the web server and client architecture, meaning your users will still have access to all the functionality available in the web client for functions that may not be exposed in each administration configured app. So really what we're doing is we're taking existing information, documents, and processes, really think of this as custom queries, searches, folder searches, access to workflow steps and queues, access to submitting forms, Unity forms, and what have you, and even incorporating access to workview applications and workview filters. All of that is available through the interface. You build it within Studio, so there's no new tools you need to learn. It's just incorporated within OnBase Studio. And then once you complete building the application, the users would access it through a URL. So really, you're building on top of the existing OnBase system. The apps are just another UI layer front end, right? So really it's compatible with the Chrome, Edge, Safari, and Firefox, or traditional browsers we would support. And of course, from an authentication perspective, fall right in line with our traditional ways of authentication through single sign-on. You could set that up through whether it's OnBase authentication, Active Directory, using the Hyland IDP, or now Hyland IDS. So all of those are supported from an authentication standpoint. You could also have access to incorporating URLs within a screen to redirect folks to different sections or maybe to a different application within the same screen. And of course, the big win here is it's responsive desktop. So it's a responsive client that's it can be used on a tablet, laptop, or desktop. And of course, the point-and-click configurability of building it within OnBase Studio. So really, what this is made up of three things. So we have screens, sources, and actions when you're building an application. And what this really means is on one screen, on one application, you could have up to 10 different screen layouts. So in other words, from an HR perspective, for an example, maybe you wanted to have admin functions like reporting dashboard features to be delivered up to HR director, HR management folks. But then from a recruiting standpoint in HR, maybe you were delivering up certain functions about specific employee document searching, folder access, and those specific things that the recruiters and HR support staff can access through the custom query and foldering, right? So you could split this up and have many different layouts for different role-based or persona-based use cases. So what this looks like is the dashboard style layout is used to give the users quick overview of critical information. The page can be configured with several different cards, if you will, that contain rows of 3 tiles. So you're looking at screens. You can incorporate a logo if you wanted to up here. And then as we go down, you can see different features and functions here. So you've got action tiles. So these can be set up to direct to reports, a new missing document request, or this is a form access. This is another form. And then these would be different workflow steps, right? Where we can incorporate different steps. And of course, this is the number of documents sitting in that workflow queue or that workflow step. And then down here, you're looking at upload features, searches, missing employee documents. So, and then being able to find another search here. So you can see you could break up the screen in different ways. And this is called quick access, the home screen, which you would have right in front of you. And then the other type of screen is called master detail. And this is really getting into the weeds of the actual, whether it's a search, like a custom query or folder, or whether it's access to a workflow queue. So enough of slides. Let's look at the software. So when you set up these applications, what we're allowing you to do is have multiple screen accessible within one application. So what this means is we're looking at this layout and we can incorporate different URL links. In other words, here, I could click this and then redirect users to maybe my own internal portal, or maybe you're using SharePoint internally for certain things, or whatever the case may be. You can incorporate redirect access to different functions, or even in a URL access to a different type of application. Okay, so feel free to add questions. Good morning. We'll need to sign there. Okay, cool. Cool. Dave, let me know if there's questions that need to be asked or answered along here. If I may get on a tangent and start rattling off and not look at the questions. So let me know.
Yep. Very good.
As we go through this, so that you can see, we can click a URL access here. As we scroll down, or you can see there's different tabs up here that I could access. This would be access to different reports that can be set up. So this is a reporting dashboard showing missing I-9s and W-4s. Access to a workflow queue, where I have access to two different workflow steps within that queue of employee assistance requests that have been submitted. And I could access that and then have access to the workflow ad hoc tasks that are available for me to click on up here, as I can look at the form that was submitted. And of course, doing a search. This is just an employee search, and this would be indicative of a folder search and or potentially a custom query, right? So this would be being able to search like you would any other search. I just did a fuzzy search by just doing asterisk Lincoln, and I was able to pull up Andrew Lincoln's folder and have access to those documents directly from here. So you can see the layout is very similar to the web client look and feel, but the nice thing is it's completely responsive, right? And from here, I go back home. You can see I've really just accessing those same features up here, but just from one screen, right? So this is just searching employee folder. So this takes you back to where we just were. And these are access to those forms to be able to submit. So you could break this up in different ways. From a workflow standpoint, going back to that screenshot that we were looking at a bit ago, I'm going to jump over to AP, and you can see that the workflow access can be set up in these tiles, the look and feel over here. So this is very similar to what you were seeing in the slide deck at the very beginning of this. So again, being able to click on these, get access to that workflow queue, and navigate directly there, and where you can click on the item, the document, have access to the document, and then have access to the click on the ad hoc tasks that would be available to you within that workflow queue. And of course, all of this rides along with the same security permissions. Everything is identical. There's no difference between using the OnBase app and accessing the content versus logging into the Unity client or web client. As far as security and user rights and permissions go, it's all the same. So it respects all of those same permissions you would be using today for access to workflow queues, access to the documents, access to the different searches. And of course, if we go over here, being able to bring to somebody's attention to submit review assistance. This is for reviewing assistance requests. as well as the other features up here. So I'll stop right here in terms of, because I know there may be some questions, and I'm more than happy to answer anything. There's the benefit with OnBase apps really is trying to, if you have staff that use OnBase that use it for a small subset of specific features. I only access these handful of workflow queues. I access these searching mechanisms, this custom query, this folder, these certain forms that I may submit on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. The nice thing is you could tailor this to be more role-based based upon those users. So you're just presenting to those users the information exactly the data and the information that they need to do the job, right? Versus uh, access to the entire web client or Unity client where they have access to all the things. Obviously, that's locked down with user rights permissions, like any on-base system would be. But from a look and feel perspective, this is a little bit more cut and dry and straightforward as far as where to go get the information that you need, if that makes sense, versus navigating to your custom query block or your folder block or within the traditional clients. And doing searching from a standard custom query, I'm just going to do an open-ended search here. So this is essentially so this is just locked down to a custom query, just looking for W4s, right? And being able to filter on this stuff is absolutely doable. Just filter down and access to this. And of course, a lot of the traditional features you would use when you're looking at an image, right? To be able to rotate if need be, change the zoom functions and those sorts of things. There are some limitations as far as what, so giving some thought on the user experience, what the users are actually doing on a day-to-day basis from working with documents or working with whatever the case may be, would definitely be something to keep in mind when building these. Because you can see here, there's no right-click function. So if people are used to right-clicking, which I can totally respect, because I use it myself when I'm using OnBase right-click function a lot. Those aren't available here. So it's the initial inception of the OnBase app was to be super simple, very straightforward, delivering up persona-based, role-based content to specific users in an easy to navigate way, and of course the responsive aspect of it. But so there's some things that are not available, right? That from a traditional using the web client or Unity client, and right-click functions would definitely be one of them. And of course, if there's a need to edit like a Word document and update and modify a Word document, that would not be possible through this mechanism, right? So being able to just pull up let's look at the application review guide offer letter. So you can see here, this is delivering up traditionally like like the web client would, and it will force you to open this outside, right? So with Word documents and certain functions of documents that traditionally people would be used to modifying the document in and of itself and updating it and then saving it back. And here's the document that I just opened. So given thought on what content the users are needing to access, what are they really doing with the content, would definitely be something to keep in mind when trying to craft these to make sure you're not unintentionally creating a solution that would prohibit or inhibit the user accessibility and features and functions that they're used to. But if people are just simply looking at images, scanned images, PDFs, comparing documents, and then, and sending them on their merry way or submitting forms, definitely something that could be accessed, right, and be able to submit a request form or whatever the case may be. And this is just an example of filling out a Unity form, and it could be any type of Unity form, right? So this is just an example of one. So a lot of our customers have been seriously giving this some thought and looking at it for some of the use cases that they have for their end users, deciding, hey, if the small folks that we have that use the system for a little bit of features and functionality in a small use case, or even in a larger use case, but they're really not doing much with the documents in terms of modifying and updating, creating revisions and those sorts of things. If that isn't happening, then you could see where this could certainly be a lot easier to consume as an end user accessing the information, as well as being able to work with the content, whether you're on a tablet, laptop, or desktop. And it's, of course, more simplistic to look at. And you can create it using your own terminology when you build these down here. And if you're interested in seeing, I'm not going to get too much under the covers, but these are all built directly within Studio. So there's an app builder tab right here in Studio, and this is where you actually start building the solutions from a point and click configurability standpoint. So to be able to decide, you can see here, this is that link that I clicked on over here. Whoops, wrong browser. Go back here. This is being able to access. So this is essentially saying I want to have a URL tab up here to redirect users to a different website. This can even be incorporated as another OnBase app, like a URL that you're creating to redirect somebody to a different application. So just by clicking this, so it's very simple, right, in terms of being able to access information and can set it up and configure. And of course, the actions in terms of creating a new action. I'm just going to do, I'm the only reason why I'm doing this so you can see what's available, right? So you can create a Unity form, you can create a workview object, you can navigate to an existing site or detail pages you've already created, open a URL or update document. Then from a source standpoint of being able to create a source, let's look down here. And I'll do new source. And here's the new types of sources, the sources you can create. You can create access to a custom query of your choosing, document retrieval, reporting dashboard, workflow queue, workview filter. So and this is, when you do this, it's just a simple point and click and then name it whatever you want, put a name, and then builds it right in here as far as what workflow step you want to use. Okay. Any questions? Get out of here. I just wanted to show you the under the covers to let you know that it's super simple to set up, very easy. And then you're creating the URL along the way that eventually people will have access to. You can see here that this is your web server address, apps, HR. When you're building this, you can see here, you're kind of creating the URL that you would send out to folks and end users along the way as you're building the app. You can see here that this changes based upon what section you're on. Traditionally, most people are going to go to a home section and then branch out from there. Any questions, thoughts? Does this look like something that you would potentially have interest in using or look into?
Yeah, Jason, I know some folks on the call have expressed this as a way of using WorkView on mobile tablets. If you
Yeah,
can kind of comment on that.
yeah, for sure. And unfortunately, I don't have any WorkView sources set up in here. But yes, since you can see, or you can add a source for a WorkView filter. So you can create a filter. So if certain users were navigating to a specific WorkView filter to access certain WorkView objects, you can absolutely set that up here. So from a source perspective, right, to be able to direct them to whatever application or filter would be relevant. This isn't displaying because I logged in as somebody who doesn't have access to anything right here. But so yes, you can absolutely have a WorkView filter set up, and then all that would look just like, you could look like something very similar to this, right? To where somebody could be clicking on, you could of course name this subject or this heading anything that would be relevant, and of course displaying all the WorkView objects that happen to be sitting in that filter along the way. From an action perspective, you could also have people create a WorkView object from here. So you can not only retrieve WorkView records, WorkView objects from the app, you could also create a WorkView object from here as well. And the creation perspective would be this action concept. So a new action would allow you to create. And if we just do whatever, here's creating WorkView object, creates a new instance of whatever class. And here's where you just pick your application that you're wanting, and then what class you're talking about here. So
Yeah, and then
this,
Jason, looks like we had a question come into you can't do it with a mobile client, correct? You have to use the browser on the tablet with a full client, correct?
yeah. So this supports, so if you're on a like an Apple tablet of some sort, right? iPad, you could use the browser on the Safari browser on that tablet to access these apps. You absolutely can. So all the person would need to do is be directed to the main URL
Perfect.
right here, and then the authentication mechanism would take over, right? But yeah, it would not be through the traditional OnBase app that you would get from downloading an application on a mobile device. That is correct. That you would not be able to access WorkView from a mobile device anymore. But in lieu of that, you can use this OnBase app, right? And you can access it on a tablet, whether it's an iPad or a Samsung device or Android or whatever the case may be. And the accessibility is there to be able to access to those browsers on those tablets. So yeah, I mean, that was one of the reasons why, since we kind of got rid of or deprecating the WorkView mobile function, we wanted to make sure, pardon me, that we had WorkView accessibility through the OnBase App Builder in this way, and like in this mechanism here. Hey. Yeah, and you do have to use the browser on the tab. But in my opinion, I think that opens up a little easier, but it depends on your organization and what you'd prefer folks using and not using. And as this moves forward, you'll see enhancements come down through it. As new versions start getting built out, I could, if need be, I could look to see if what enhancements, if any, are coming out in 25.1. or the OnBase apps, if there's anything that would be, if there's anything that you're not seeing here from a functional standpoint that you would absolutely need, you could certainly let us know and we could look into seeing if that would be a viable thing to add at some point in the next version release.
Yeah, it looks like Patrick here says
Yeah.
that would definitely be helpful for sure, Jason.
Okay, cool. You can absolutely do that.
And Jason, from your kind of vast experience with this, any cool or kind of highlight solutions you've seen um, beyond just AP or HR that you've seen customers or partners or Hyland build with the app builder?
Um, well, since it just came out a year ago, I don't know the adoption rate. I'm not sure if it's there yet, right? So it hasn't been, in the marketplace very long. So I'm not exactly 100% sure what the adoption rate for this is. Um, our hope is more people will start getting, exposed to it and start using it more. And then, of course, the more people that start potentially poking around and using it, the more feedback we can get to turn around and deliver to dev um, on, hey, these customers are asking for X, Y, and Z that are not available in the OnBase app yet. And if we get more customers asking for that same thing, they're more apt with the rationale and reason. So I'll be very transparent with you. When we first came out with this in 23.1, the first question I had for dev was, why can I not, right, when I open up a document, right, the right click function was something I was like, hey, why is that not there? Right. So we were told by dev that they understood that their first pass at this was to make it super simple and not over engineer it, not overdo it, and start seeing if there's a lot of similar voices asking for the same thing and with the rationale and reason why, right? And then they could start maybe looking at incorporating those features in. So the more customers we could start getting to use this, to give them to turn around and give us feedback on what they like and what they don't like and what they wish was there, the better for us to be able to push that up to dev. So I don't have a straight answer for you because we haven't had a huge adoption rate of this yet because it's so new.
No, I appreciate that, Jason. Um, Looks like we did have one question from Sherry Smith come in. Up, two questions. For those of us that have everything currently set up using Unity forms, would this be an easier format to use when developing new objects?
So this would be just once you already build the Unity form, this could be a way to render that Unity form right to be submitted. So from a submission standpoint of this would not be a mechanism to build said Unity form in. You would still build the Unity form um, in the same capacity using the Unity client. But if you wanted to deliver up the Unity form through the OnBase app, like I'm showing you here of using Unity form through the app as someone who would be submitting it, then that's the mechanism. Sure. And question two, would it be worth the effort to transition the current Unity form process over? Yeah. So you build the Unity form in Unity client like you normally would, and then delivering the mechanism for accessing the Unity form to submit potentially could be delivered up in using the OnBase app like you're seeing here. And I hope that answers it. So it really depends on how the users would prefer to access, maybe even give a subset of, and since this doesn't cost anything, there's no additional cost to use this. You may even want to poke around internally and if you have a test group of end users or staff that wouldn't mind poking around at it, throw together a quick app send them a link through a URL through an email or whatever, and say, hey, access the app here. Let me know what you think. On the homepage, maybe place like access to the like some forms that they would access or need to submit on a daily basis, and maybe put a custom query or folder search on the homepage. Keep it super simple and see what they think, right? See if they have any feedback for you and say, hey, check this out. Let me know what you think. And get feedback from them if they think it's easier to use than traditional Unity client. Okay, looks like Patrick is out. Yeah, we've kind of gone over anyway. But yeah, if you have any follow-up questions, please submit them to our folks at Paperless and Dave and anyone else, and let us know.
All right. Thank you so much, Jason. We appreciate that. And thank you for all the attendees and questions. And if something else comes up while you're thinking of it later today or after while you're viewing the